Good evening and welcome to the 38th edition of the LIVRESQ Empower Your Teaching webinar. My name is Aluka. I'll be your host as usual. We have a lot of exciting new updates to go through. We've added quite a few features that hopefully, for sure will enhance your experience with LIVRESQ. They're a little bit scattered around. I'm going to specifically walk you through some of them. Others we are still under development. I'll show you what they are. Nevertheless, they might change in the next period, but I will still show you what they look like and what these new features entail. Some of these features, in order for me to talk about them coherently, will also entail me talking about the concept behind the original. For instance, we'll talk about quizzes, and I'll show you a little bit of what we've developed in quizzes, a lot of exciting updates there. So without further ado, I'll share my screen with our tool. Instead of the picture you were just seeing. Now that I'm sharing my screen, we'll just start a new empty project the way I usually like to do this, without any complicated features. So we just look at a new empty project and we'll look inside of it. I'll just close this one that was open before, and we'll look inside of it to see what new features come up. Quizzes are the most interesting thing, and quizzes have the biggest update because, just as a little spoiler, we finally have the possibility to time quizzes. So if you want to time your learners and make sure that they solve a quiz in a certain amount of time, you can do that now in LIVRESQ. We've also added, however, some bits and pieces to resources such as the text resource. And here, if we double click on the text resource inside the text editing menu, that allows you to change regular settings that have to do with text editors in general. You can also add links, pictures. We have new buttons for find and replace. So you can now find and replace a term inside your text. Match case, match the whole word. So this is a possibility now that we've added and that you can use seamlessly. You can access the find using the magnifying glass here. You can switch between finding and replacing like this, or you can access replace straight from this button. So finding and replacing, if you have a lot of text on the screen, it's really useful. It works on a single text box at the minute. So if you have multiple text boxes in a section, then this will not function for multiple ones, because the only way we can access this text box, this menu actually, is by by double clicking on a certain text box. Like for instance, if I were to add a second text box, I double click and I have access to this text editing menu. If I have multiple text boxes, then I don't have access to that text editing menu. But the good news is that the same menu appears almost wherever we want to add text in LIVRESQ. So it works in quizzes, it works in other tools as well, where we have bits and bobs, bits of text, and we have the same menu. So besides the find and replace, the possibility to find and replace text, we've also added this little feature that shows us blocks of text. It shows us which one is a paragraph, which one is basically it delimitates the paragraphs. More updates will most likely come in the future. Otherwise, the same settings are here. We've been getting a lot of questions related formatting and copying and pasting from one document to another. And here I should probably mention that when you want to use the same settings for text inside a LIVRESQ project, it's very useful to know that we have this little remove format button up here. This means that whatever text you paste inside a text box will revert to the project settings. And you can set the project settings for text from the preferences for the entire project inside the theme. I have advanced configuration for the theme, and here I can select a font size, a font family, and whenever I remove formatting, whenever I use this button to remove formatting for a certain bit of text, then it will always revert back to the project properties. But this we've always had, just a reminder, because again, we're getting questions about this. Otherwise, we have find, we have replace, and we have this little this little separator that tells us where a paragraph ends and where it begins. With the additional possibility that was again always there to access the source, the HTML source for the text box, this allows us to include resources from outside LIVRESQ. This also allows us to really edit the text using HTML, editing the images, editing the lists to exactly what you want if you can't find the features already in the text editor. But otherwise, again, a good way to practice or a good way to use text that you've already prepared somewhere else is to copy and paste it to LIVRESQ and then to use the remove format button. Additional, new, we have the find and replace. So this is for text. I'm gonna go to quizzes now. The rest of the features are going to kind of, like I was saying, scattered. We're still not officially launched, but for quizzes, it's important to note, especially related to being able to finally time your learners. So I've just added a quiz very quickly. This is what a quiz looks like. If you've never used LIVRESQ before and if you've never seen LIVRESQ before, I should mention a little bit of the purposes because this pertains to our discussion tonight about the new features and about timing learners. The way quizzes are structured in LIVRESQ is based on purpose. And the purpose of the quiz can be one of three. It's determined from the right-hand side, it's over here, and we can choose between learning, assessment, and survey. We use learning quizzes while the user is learning, while the learner is learning. We're using them not to test them, but to allow them to discover the answer, and I'll show you in a minute what I mean. We use assessment quizzes to test the learner, and we use survey quizzes to ask questions and to essentially create surveys. So I'm going to add another option here, and I'm going to say that only one option is correct. And let's see what happens. Let's see how the platform responds to each and every format. If we're in learning, if I go into view mode, what the platform does, because I'm learning, it's not testing me, is it's going to wait for me to find the correct answer. And if I find the correct answer, then I finish the quiz and I can move on. It's not going to tell me, it's going to tell me I'm wrong instantly, and it's waiting for me to find the correct answer. In addition, you can add bits and pieces of feedback to each of these options to give more information about a certain option, which is even more beneficial to learning. So you might want to explain why a certain answer is correct, a certain answer is incorrect, sorry. So to add, for instance, an explanation for this option that is incorrect, we click on feedback and we can add text here and tell the learner explaining why it's not correct. Sorry, that was my Romanian keyboard peeking out. And now if the learner will choose this option, they have this little question mark with the explanation about why the answer is not correct. So this is learning. This is the platform waiting for me to learn, helping me learn. If I'm in assessment, then I'm being tested. At the end of the learning period, at the end of learning, you can test to check the understanding. And this is not giving me feedback instantaneously. I have a verify button. Once I press this button, I can move on and I get the feedback on whether the answer is wrong or not. And for survey, I'm just going to exit view mode for that. For survey, I can't even select a correct answer. I get no feedback. I just click, I get the feedback if I've added it, but I get no feedback whether that answer is correct or not. And I'm just sending the answers. If the project is exported as a SCORM file and featured in an LMS, then the answer will be saved to that LMS. This is quite straightforward. So learning, assessment, and survey. The possibility to time the learner is not for learning, but for assessment. And that's what we've added. That's what's new. In order to access it, I'm going to click on assessment. And then next to the purpose, I have this configure button. This allows me to do a number of things. One of them is to use certain questions out of a question pool. This is not very new. It's quite new, but it's been a while since we've implemented it. This means that if I have multiple questions here, so these are 4 questions inside a quiz, I can have as many as I want. Let's say I have 100. I can tell the platform to randomly select a finite number, for instance, out of 4, 2 questions. And when the quiz is displayed, it will only show me those 2 questions and nothing else. And these questions are randomly selected from the list that I've given the platform. By the way, just a disclaimer, multiple choice is not the only type of quiz we have. I'm just using this to show you because it's sort of the easiest to configure and the easiest to see and to imagine as a quiz. What's new is the fact that we can time the learner, which means that if I want to give my learner 10 seconds to answer the 2 questions, maybe 5 because they're really short, then I can go into view mode and I now have a timer that I can click on. So I start, the countdown has started. If I don't solve it, then the questionnaire expires. So I need to be able to solve it in whatever time limit is here. If I want to delete any of these settings, by the way, I have the possibility to clear my settings using this button. So I can now time learners. If I don't want to time them, I can limit their number of attempts. This was already here. I can validate answers. I can show results, the final results. I can use items in scoring. Scoring is not really complicated, but it can work in different ways. So assessment quizzes and only assessment quizzes can be used in scoring because at the end of a course, the learner can have a final score. And this can be calculated in multiple ways. What we added is the possibility to change the number of custom points for each question. So if I want a question to carry more weight than another one, I can click on custom points and I can give it more than 1 point. Maybe this one is 2 points. Then if I click on used in scoring here, this means that this quiz will count towards my final score, but as a whole. So my score, the score that I obtained for this quiz, will be calculated in my final score. If I add another quiz, then that will be calculated as well, and the 2 of them will be added together, and the result divided by 2. I can also have the option to score each question independently, which means that each question will count as a separate quiz. And when the final score is in, for instance, if I have this quiz with 4 questions, it's used in scoring. I've clicked on score each item independently. I didn't give any questions custom points. I can go back and I can add another quiz, 2 questions. This is also an assessment. It's also used in scoring. My final score will be 4 questions from here plus 1 score for this quiz. So that's the difference, whether I'm counting every question or if I'm counting the quiz as a whole. Score each item independently means that I'm counting every question and adding it towards the final score. The score can be displayed at the end of the quiz, which you've already seen. Maybe I should get at least 1 right. 2. Now I get a final score here, so it's 50%. I got 2 of the 4 questions correctly. And for the entire course, it can be added as a variable or it can be added inside the certification. So if I wanted to add a certificate at the very end, I didn't add it at the very end, just give me 1 sec. Here it is. This will also display my score, and I can find it here. But inside the text box, you can also add variables, again, an option that was already here. And one of the variables you can add is the score percent, and this will calculate the score for your quizzes. So very importantly, just to sort of sum up what we've been through, you can now add timers to assessment quizzes. This is the biggest improvement, the flashiest one, and perhaps one of the most important that we've added. And you can add custom points to your questions if you need to. We've discussed this before, and we've had questions related to types of quizzes where we have more than one correct answer, or where we have more than one item inside a single question. We cannot score these separately at the moment. So if I have a multiple choice with two correct answers and I get only one of them correctly, this still counts as an incorrect question. It will count as an incorrect answer, not as a correct one. Okay. Give me 1 second. Okay. Now, outside of quizzes and outside of this big modification with being able to time learners, I'd also like to draw your attention to the fact that we have little bits and bobs. Just like with the text box where we added little bits and bobs, we now have the possibility of a new feature or a new setting for the accordion. I'll just add an accordion very fast here. This setting can be found inside the editing menu of the accordion, and it's called sequential toggling. Without this turned on, you can see that when I open a new title, the other titles stay on. With sequential toggling, when I open a second title, the title above it closes. So it's not something big, but it's a new feature. It's small. It's a new setting that we were able to add that was requested by some of our users and that we hope you'll find useful. We also have some changes on the hotspots. I'm going to talk about these in a bit, not today though. But if you're seeing any differences in the hotspots, it's true there are some arrows there. You can have cyclic navigation between hotspots, just a little bit because I cannot help it. Just a little bit of if you're here for the first time, the hotspots resource, the way it works is that you click on a label or on a hotspot and it displays more information. And if you have more than one label, you can navigate through it in multiple ways, including these little arrows that can navigate between the hotspots. And you can also select a number, an order for these hotspots. So we'll keep developing that, and we're bringing new things to this as well. But otherwise, the most important bit that I wanted to cover is the scoring and quizzes. And if there are any questions related to that, whether you're on Zoom or you're watching us on Facebook, or maybe you're watching this as a recording on YouTube, it's very important. And I did forget something. One more thing about quizzes, we now have an unfolded view as well. You might notice that even though I have 4 questions here, inside my section, I have one question displayed, and it kind of looks like a gallery of questions. I finish one and the next one comes up in a gallery. Now, I also have the possibility now to have the unfolded view, which means that the questions will be displayed one under the other. So now I can see it even in view mode, and I can go through each question, and I have a list of questions rather than a gallery of questions. Again, a feature that sometimes that might be useful or not, but it's there, it's new, and it offers new possibilities. Timing, this for quizzes, the new option to find and replace on the text box, the new options for the accordion. And for the grand finale that I've left towards the end of our meeting is one extra option for the export. We can now export in PDF as well. Obviously, this will not keep the interactive character of your material. It is in this editor, but once you select print PDF, It will just be a regular PDF. But if you need your content if you need your content in PDF instead of screenshotting it for maybe a presentation or something, you can now export it straight to PDF from LIVRESQ. All right, this is mainly it in terms of new things. If there are questions, again, especially related to scoring and to how scoring works, we can cover them in a future meeting. You can drop us a line on any of our platforms and we'll get back to you and answer these questions. We are here every Thursday, not every Thursday, every other Thursday at 6:30. Here to present different new options that we have in LIVRESQ or to talk about features more in depth. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Um, I hope this was useful. I hope you found out new things. Uh, Hold on. We have the meeting here. And I will see you back here in 2 weeks' time, 6:30 CET. This is 7:30 Romanian time. Same place with the same type of meeting. Let us know if you have any questions, and thank you so much for joining me. Have a good evening.